Born prematurely in Philadelphia on Tuesday, November 22, 1966, the next thing we know about Stan Smith is that at age 6, Jack, his father, got him a fake ID so he could sell his blood. That year, Jack also takes his family out on a cheap ski vacation to an unheated cabin out in the woods. At age 7, Stan tries to get Jack to teach him how to ride a bike, but he blows him off. During the summer, they can't afford to take him to the zoo, so they sit on a roadside to watch a crow eat a dead squirrel. At age 8, the family goes on a harbor cruise as a vacation, but it's really just a trip in a trash boat. Shortly after that, Jack walks out on them, and to help Stan feel better, his mom takes him to Johnson's parlor, where they made him feel special again, and promised to always be there for him, only to be blown up moments after they walk out that night. When he was 9, he was spending time with his dad when he left him at a basketball game, where the Globetrotters took him in and brought him on tour for a couple of months before his dad picked him back up. A few months later, he and his best friend Jeremy Davis saw each other naked under a waterfall. This was also the age he started kidnapping all his mom's new boyfriends, something he continued to do through season 5 of the show. At 10, Stan's dad is tired of dealing with him, and he pawns him off on a friend for a few weeks who he tells him is his imaginary friend. But he ultimately leaves Stan alone when Jack doesn't come back and refuses to pay him. At this point, he also develops a lifelong relationship with a tree, who he treats as a surrogate father, while at the same time, his mother starts to fear that without his father at home every day, he would start to act too feminine, so she began punishing him when he played with a doll or tried on lipstick. At 11, he began attending Frank Stallone Middle School, and one day he finds a dead body in the woods. He also gets bullied by a group of boys on Halloween before his only friend Tommy pretends he doesn't know him in order to not get beat up too. His dad also tries to teach him about sex at this age by forcing him to watch him have sex with a hooker. At 12, he receives the nickname Stan Frank for writing in his diary at school. During summer, he attends Bible camp and has an odd but not sexual relationship with Father Roy. Afterwards, he starts working with his dad in a dump truck that actually moves drugs, and a little while later invites the police chief to his 13th birthday party, not realizing that his father was a wanted thief who the chief recognized at the party. Stan walks in on his mom sleeping with his dad in a clown costume and doesn't realize that it's him, so he winds up blocking out the memory. She had been sleeping with Jack as a goodbye, because since the chief had seen him, he had to go on the run. He tells Stan that he was going off to be a spy, saving the world, and that he wouldn't be back for decades, but that Stan couldn't tell anybody, not even his mother or his future wife. After this, his mother told him his puppy was gonna die from a fake disease, only because they were moving to a cheap apartment that didn't allow pets, so she made him shoot their dog. At 14, he began attending John DeLorean High School and took over fiduciary responsibility for his mom's 401k. At 17, he was relentlessly bullied by the man with the best theme music in the series, Stelio Contos, as well as the popular kids for having acne, at one point even being covered in pigs at a dance. At 18, he went to college and started working at a White Castle sweeping up hair. Around 20, his grandfather dies and offers him and his half-brother the option between either $20,000 or a deed to some land. Stan chooses the money and gets it in cash, but accidentally forgets it on the bus. He also begins figure skating competitively and actually gets to go to nationals, but ultimately loses when his partner is injured repeatedly. At the age of 21, he is being bullied in college for having acne, so he undergoes experimental treatment to clear the acne, but it winds up making him go permanently bald, so he begins wearing a wig. At 22, he joins the army and trains to become a ranger, but is quickly recruited to the CIA. After graduating training, he works at the Miami field office, where he focuses on taking down a drug cartel, but is foiled by Roger, who he doesn't know yet, and who poses as a CIA asset to trap Stan, because he is also the drug cartel's leader. Eventually, Stan tries to catch him a second time, but instead of finding cocaine where he thought it was, he gets covered in manure. The town laughs at him and builds a statue and establishes a holiday in honor of him. calling it Fool's Day. This day also marked a shift in Stan's attitude toward work, deciding to take his job more seriously and leading to his success later in life. At 23, he moves to Langley to work at the CIA office, and shortly after, he is driving down a road when he sees a woman asking for a ride on the side of the road. It's Francine, and they connect after accidentally running over a raccoon and having to mercy kill it together. They are married not long after, and Stan does not tell Francine that his father is a spy, instead hiring a stranger to pretend to be his father. In the early months of their marriage, Stan and Francine hang with Tuttle a lot, and also have a roommate named Radhika. They have Haley a few months after getting married, and Steve 5 years after that. After 3 years, Stan is sent on a mission to keep Germany from winning the Winter Olympics. So they trade the best German skier's brain with the brain of a goldfish, and Stan keeps the skier, whose name is Klaus, as a pet for the family. 2 years after that, on Steve's 5th birthday, Stan is rescued from a grenade by Roger while the CIA is hunting him, and Stan decides to let him live with his family to repay him for saving his life, telling Steve that Roger was his new pet alien as a birthday present. Born in Langley Falls, Virginia, September 26, 1967, to wealthy parents, the next thing we know about Francine Smith is that when she was less than 1 year old, her biological parents, Nicholas and Cassandra Dawson, were going on vacation with her. But while they were at the airport, they learned that there were no babies allowed in the first class area of the plane. So they decided to abandon her at the airport so they could stay in first class for their flight. She was put through the system and eventually was placed at a Catholic orphanage where the nuns beat her with meat and fish for being left-handed, so she learned to be ambidextrous. When she was 3, she fell into a well, and a fireman died while rescuing her, turning her into a national spectacle. Her eventual parents, Mama and Baba, started visiting her when she was 5, but it took them 2 more years until she was 7 to save up enough money to adopt her, at which point she moved in with her new parents and their daughter, Gwen, who was 4 years older than Francine. A few weeks after moving in with her parents, she accidentally got her head stuck in the banister, so she started carrying butter with her everywhere she went. When Francine was 15, she developed a huge crush on her high school algebra teacher. It spiraled to the point that she snuck into his home to smell his t-shirts while cutting herself in the closet. Everyone thought he had done something wrong, and he wound up losing his job. She also wound up developing the nickname Suck Machine sometime later. At the end of her freshman year, she saw her sister smoking in school and decided to try it for herself, but accidentally caused a huge fire. Her sister realized what happened and took the fall for Francine, setting her on the track to being seen as the bad apple. Her sophomore year, she was assaulted in the gym showers at school by a group of teen female bullies who technically sexually assaulted her, despite her not stating it that way. Her junior year, she got bullied and ultimately shot by the archery team because they didn't like her lunch. At 18, Francine got an acting role on Scarecrow and Mrs. King, but was outshined by George Clooney, and her acting career didn't wind up taking off. Shortly after this, she lost her virginity to, in her own words, a group of construction workers. She went to college and quickly gained notoriety as a party girl, and she raised drinking and tuition money by taking sexy pictures and selling them online. She eventually stabbed her roommate to death, but somehow got off scot-free, though she wound up leaving the school without graduating. After leaving college, she continued partying and eventually became a groupie for a lot of bands, sleeping with a huge number of rock stars. One day, she was walking home from a Duran Duran concert and looking to hitch a ride when a man picked her up who turned out to be Stan. He accidentally ran over a raccoon, and the two bonded over having to mercy kill it. After a few months of dating, they get engaged and are happy, but a few nights before the wedding, Francine feels cold feet and sleeps with a stranger at a bar, unknowingly getting pregnant with Haley. She doesn't tell Stan Stan about the affair, and they get married soon after. She and Stan move into their new home together, and for a few months they rent out a room to their roommate, Radhika. Francine learns that she's pregnant a few months later and panics and runs off to a motel and considers getting an abortion, but eventually changes her mind. 6 months later, when she was already due, Stan decides they should go on a vacation to Africa against the doctor's orders, so Francine winds up giving birth out in the wild. Thankfully, she gives birth to Steve in the hospital 5 years later, before starting her habit of shoplifting. Born in Germany on 4/20, 1962, the next thing we know about Klaus Heisler is that as a child he accidentally caused the death of the cast of his favorite TV show, Gernot and Strudel. His grandfather was also a train conductor at Auschwitz Zoo, and when he was 12, he entered the Junior Olympics, and after passing a drug test, he invented the high five. After high school, he studied psychology at Frankfurt University. At some point after graduating college, he got into gambling and lost a ton of money to the East German Mafia, and also bounced a check for an abortion for his girlfriend, so the baby was placed back inside her. That baby would grow up to be Shia LaBeouf. In his late 20s, he started dating a woman named Elsa, who supported him as he continued to become an Olympic skier. But eventually, she cheated on him with the entire East German bobsleigh team, and they broke up. Shortly after this, during the 1986 Winter Olympics, Stan kidnapped him and swapped his brain with that of a goldfish in order to prevent Germany from winning a gold medal. After that, he went to Arizona State University, where he was a member of the Beta Jizz fraternity. While he was there, he also killed 3 teenagers while driving drunk.
Oh wait, I killed 3 teenagers!
At some point after leaving ASU, he moved to Tampa and spent lots of time with a new group of friends that would come to be known as his boys. Born around 400 AD on an ice-cold alien planet, the next thing we know about Roger is that he killed and ate his father at the age of 15. He then spent some time working as a Walmart-like store grader on his frigid home planet, and this is all we know about him from the earliest stages of his life. Some 1400 years later, around the year 1800 AD on Earth, Roger was flying through space with his aunt when he accidentally caused her to crash onto Earth, killing her on impact.
I loved another family once. They were pioneers.
Wait a minute. I thought you landed in Roswell in the 40s.
The second time. The first time I was with my Aunt Carolyn. She had always been a bad driver. A little thing like her nephew's Nerf football bouncing on the light speed button, and she was all, blah, brace for impact! She was killed instantly. Anyway, that's when I met the Meekers, a family of fur trappers. Things were going great, till one of our wagon wheels popped off. But I was in better shape than the Meekers.
Only to have them die while traversing the Oregon Trail. It was around this time that he fell into a deep depression and started drowning out his feelings with substances. After 100 years on Earth, he finally decided to leave once more sometime in the early 1900s. After spending some time with his species once again, he found himself in love with and engaged to another member of his species, only to be caught cheating in the year 1947.
You know, I was thinking this weekend we could go out with Derek and Tommy. What do you think, honey? Hello?
Roger! Oh my God, okay, wow. Can we please be grown-ups about this? Because I can't.
He was then unknowingly marooned back on Earth where he'd been picked up from, and told that he was there to decide the fate of the Earth and to send up valued human specimens for their spaceship mall. Eventually he learns that as revenge, his ex had put a note on his ship calling him a crash test dummy while telling him that he was the decider. Once crashing back on Earth, he spends the next 5 decades partying, living as multiple personas, drugging kids, and creating MDMA.
I made it!
It's 1981! Mr. Nagel, sir, I have traveled a great distance to see you. You paint my dream girl today, and I need to know who she is.
I'll help you on your lover's quest. But first, share in some cherry wine.
Nagel, you son of a bitch, let's drug some kids. Oh, you kidding me? You already cut the turkey? We're very close to cracking the formula. We have the MGM, but we're missing something. The missing ingredient! That's my stationery. My handwriting? How did you get this? Who are you?
We're time travelers from the future.
Among many other things, before the CIA captures him in the late 90s. But he manages to escape with the help of Stan, whom he saves after an accident, which causes Stan to allow him to live with his family.
Years ago, Roger was a prisoner in Area 51. He got loose, and Dad was the one who found him. Guards threw grenades into the room. When Roger saved Dad's life.
Stan first introduces Roger as Steve's pet alien, but eventually he is welcomed into the family as more than just a pet. It is implied on multiple occasions that Roger is some sort of force of nature or agent of destiny, possibly even a god of chaos. But we never get any level of finality on those ideas, with the showrunners always skirting around the details of how Roger does what he does. While he's not immortal, seemingly able to be killed just by being choked out by Stan,
You wouldn't kill me. You love me too much.
See?
You're mean!
And you're a pain in my ass.
he does possess a great number of superpowers, including a healing factor, super leg strength, mind reading, and super speed, among many others. The super speed is explained on multiple occasions to be how he manages to have so many personas, and he jokes that the people who believe themselves to be his relatives have simply been brainwashed, perhaps through the use of his mind reading or dream walking ability. All in all, I don't think the showrunners of American Dad seem to care about continuity or character history, instead simply using Roger and his antics as narrative tools, with the most minimal amount of effort necessary to meld whatever they need from him into the show's already existing history. At one point, even giving him the ability to transport into books, while having him actively voice the fact that they didn't care enough to try to explain it.
I could use my alien powers to place us in one of these stories.
You can do that?
You know it, but I've never done it before, so it could be highly risky. It could also be smooth sailing. Lots of variables here. I'm a poop detective, not a book scientist.
Roger, put me in the damn book!
How about we take a trip to the ballroom? That sounds fun. Oh, this kind of ballroom.
His blood has also been no less than 3 different colors throughout the show, and the showrunners frequently acknowledge within the show the fact that there are so many inconsistencies, usually as a lazy joke, rather than putting the effort into writing a real explanation or doing any actual world building. He is still an incredibly interesting character, and by far the fan favorite. They had even considered giving him a dedicated movie based on his home planet, wherein they would explain more of his backstory and species. But this was ultimately cancelled, although left open as a possible finale for the show as a whole. I personally would love to see some more of Roger's species and his home planet, and hope they really do this one day, though I don't want them to end the show in order to do it. That's all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.